Hey everyone, welcome to Husker247 Daily. I'm Brian Christopherson. I'm joined by Michael Bruntz. We're still going through the position groups, sort of a mid-season refresher deal, kind of comparing with last year what we felt about each group at this time. And today's topic is wide receivers. Bruns, how do you feel like you've got your like Jerry Rice receiving gloves on? You ready to roll?
Yes. Yeah, I'm ready to go. I got the old school. I remember, so I have a wide receiver glove. You know how like kids line up and around the tunnel at the end of games and stuff like that. Um, when I was a kid, I went to the Wyoming Nebraska game, the one where the quarterback for Wyoming nearly died. That gets shown all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The Brooke Behringer collapsed lung game. Nebraska
Tough
had to kind
game.
of get into a little bit of a fight and come back and win that game. Anyways, we're walking out, and I'm just hanging out, trying to get out of the stadium, and a Wyoming wide receiver walks over to me and gives me one of those like old school, wide receiver gloves back the way they had them. And I kid you not, there was so much just sticky stuff on that glove like you wouldn't believe. Like you probably couldn't get away with that now, but I think the glove's gone. It's probably the fingers are all probably stuck together somewhere, wherever it is. But yeah, that's my wide receiver glove story from when I was a kid, and a moderately entertaining football game, and that probably didn't need to be.
Yeah, it was a wild game. Not to go all into that, but I remember it well because I was mowing our church's lawn. We like uh, every 3 to 4 weeks. It was my assignment to help out mowing it, and my dad drove up to the church. He's like, "Hey, we got tickets to the game." We were in Omaha. We didn't get there till the second quarter or whatever. Nebraska was down 14-0 to Wyoming, national championship
Yeah,
Nebraska team. If Wyoming doesn't fumble a punt inside the 10 on the last drive with like 4 minutes left, Nebraska ends up winning 42-32. That's your blast from the past. Now we'll talk about wide receivers. And
I knew
okay,
if I
first
brought
off,
that up, I was gonna have to twist your arm to start talking about that game.
yeah, you knew you'd press the trigger on that one.
Got him
We'll have
hooked.
to just throughout June, we might just have to like 3 times a week pick a game from like that era and we'll just talk about it. But I think people might listen to that. Anyway, the receivers this year compared with 12 months ago, do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Do you feel the same?
See, so this group is a tough one for me because you got to get in the 2025 headspace, right? Like
Yes.
you go back to last year, and you got Dane Key out of the transfer portal. You won a really hard fought recruiting battle with a number of top schools. You get Dane Key, feeling great. You got your number one wide receiver. Um, I kind of Ja'Cory Barney when he was coming off of his freshman season. You're kind of like, okay, what is this going to look like? Um, I think there was the expectation that he would have um, a little bit more production down the field in his sophomore season than what he did as a freshman. You had an Isaiah Hunter coming from Cal, who I don't know was maybe appreciated as much as he should have been, or ended up being appreciated, I guess, prior to the start of the season last year. So I don't I don't think I feel significantly better about the top line that Nebraska has this year than what they had last year. And I think where I feel a little bit differently is I feel better about the overall depth of that position and the potential of the second line guys than what I did a year ago, just because you have another year under the belt. Quinn Clark, I think, is a really big piece of that, that positivity about that second group. But I think for the top line guys, I don't think I feel significantly better than I did a year ago. How about you?
No, that's fair. I feel the same. You're right. You have to get back to what you thought in May, not November. I think we thought Dane Key was going to be probably produce bigger numbers than he did, and so there was that part of it. Um, and Isaiah Hunter did about what I thought he was going to do, honestly, in his first year.
Mhm.
And I think people do have to remember with Isaiah, like, the last few games, like the passing game got basically shut down. He didn't play in the bowl game and he still had 600 yards. So, I mean, pretty good debut Husker season for him. And you can point to 3 to 5 plays that he made that might have turned at least a couple games that were very close for Nebraska, including in the opener against Cincinnati when he made that 50-50 catch before half. So, yeah, you're right, though. Like, as you look through it, it's a lot of the same cast. I think Quasi Gilmer, that you sort of take away Key and then you add Quasi. Knowing what we saw from Key last year, and I'm not to knock him because he played hard throughout the whole season and blocked and all that stuff. But I think Quasi might be able to give him more than Key did. But that's after the fact of seeing what happened. So I'm with you. I feel about the same. Quinn Clark to me is sort of the wild card that can take this thing up a notch if he's like more of like one of the top 4, like instead of it just being, we always categorize it as that top 3 and then the other guys are fighting. If Quinn Clark is actually like right there sort of with them and gives them 4, and then Cortez Mills is at least knocking on the door, somebody like him, then they take a step up. So that's what I think. If you were to give them a ranking 1 through 10, where would you start it out? And then what would like what's like a ceiling number that could go beyond like what you're thinking now if they really just like maxed out?
I'd say like a low 7s now. Like I feel like it's a pretty good group. I think their ability to max out is so predicated on what Nebraska has at quarterback. Like, are you going to be better on the deep balls? Are you going to be able to throw the ball more downfield? That's a huge question. I mean, I think the ceiling's high for that group for that reason. Like, I mean, and you kind of hit on it with Dane Key that by the end of the season, I mean, those guys were just basically blocking for Emmett Johnson. I mean, that was why they were out there, and they did a great job of it. But you're going to need to win one-on-one a little bit more. You're going to need those guys to adapt to what I think the passing game is going to be with Anthony Calandria, with a little bit more potential for big plays. You're going to have to make some 50-50 catches, I think, some contested catches, a little bit more so than last year, just kind of given where I think Calandria is going to be willing to put the ball. And so I think the ceiling's good, but I'd say probably low 7s is where I'm at with that group. Like, I feel good about it overall. I felt good about last year's group. And, I think I think there's just a little bit more around that wide receiver group at the quarterback spot. I think the pass protection is going to be a little bit better with the offensive line. And I think that's all going to allow that group to excel a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't need to say much more. I'd say low 7s too. And if it were a max out situation, it would be like in the 8s. And that would be because of the quarterback, really. Like are they on the same page? Can they be elite on those third down red zone situations where you got to have it? So I'm right there with you. So what's your biggest concern about this group finishing up?
Well, I mean, I think, and I don't even know if it's the group, but I think that you need more production down the field. Like, I mean, you've written about it on the site quite a bit about how, everything with Nebraska last season, the ball wasn't traveling far down the field. Like, it was a slant and the guy made somebody miss, and that was a long gainer. Something, a lot of the short stuff around the line of scrimmage. I think if it continues to look like that this year, I think that's maybe my concern for that group, is that you're just not kind of tapping into what I think is there. I think they can be the type of group that's a little bit bigger, a little bit physical, and can make those, catches on 3rd and 11, and keep things moving that maybe the group last year couldn't. So I want to see more of that in the offense. The conversation the last couple of years too has been, the coaching staff saying we need to just win off the line of scrimmage more. Is this group going to be able to do that this year, or is that going to be another talking point for another season? That's a question in my mind.
Yep.
One guy that we haven't talked about, that is going to potentially factor for that group, depending on how he comes back from injury, is what does Janarian Bonner look like? Because however he factors in this offense, if it's strictly wide receiver, if it's a tight end, if they flex him out of the backfield, like whatever role they envision. I mean, he's kind of a guy that I've almost forgotten about in that mix of, you have your top 3 guys. I mean, he's right there and was going to be a huge part of whatever they were going to do last year. What does him being back in the fold kind of mean for that group and how they can kind of mix and match guys? That's another question I have. Not a concern, but I think it's something that, given how this coaching staff feels about him, that's something that at least needs to be discussed as we get closer to fall camp.
Yeah, Bonner's pretty interesting because when Dana Holgerson talks about him, you can tell he was just torn up when they lost him, beside the personal reasons, because of like the value of he's just so versatile. I think he puts the defense in a bind a little bit because you can move him all around. You don't know exactly where Nebraska is going to line him up, and so that gives you like sort of maybe a schematic advantage sometimes pre-snap. And so that's a good name to bring up. There's a lot of names in that room that are sort of interesting to see if they can push. We've mentioned like Larry Miles as a young guy, Jeremiah Jones. I know there's intrigue. Like, can he get that going? Demetrius Bell has been injured, and it's just one of those things where it's just sort of stayed that way. So we'll see if anything changes there. But there's that top 3. Quasi's going to have a lot of attention on him early on and what he gets done. But I think you're right. Can they win at the line of scrimmage? And then can you make a few beyond normal, extraordinary plays in the red zone? Like the seasons so often come down to that. And if these guys can make a few more of those, it'll go a long way, because this red zone offense was not that good last year. Part of that was struggling to run, but they also were just off on the timing on some throws that weren't there. I think of the Michigan game. Isaiah had a great season, of course, but remember Isaiah like stepped out of bounds and then caught the one. It took a touchdown off the board that would have been huge by the end of it. And then there was another play, I think, in that game where Quinn Clark kind of mistimed his jump, and didn't come up with it. Might have been the same drive, but regardless, those are the type of plays to win those kind of games you're going to have to get from your wide receivers where you bank it. So we'll see if they can do that. My final question for you before we get out on the spot, who's going to lead in receiving yards?
I'll go with Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I think Isaiah will do it. I think that Ja'Cory Barney will lead in catches, but I think there's going to be a little bit more for Hunter in this whatever this offense is going to look like. And I think too, I mean, we saw the screen to him about 400 times after it worked last season, but I mean, there's that in the offense for him, and I just think, when you kind of start talking about guys that get downfield a little bit more, he's who I'm thinking of. Like, I think and he was this way at Cal too, where I think there's more big plays for him. So I'll say he leads in yardage.
I'd say the same. I think he's a pro player. I mean, I think he's got the speed and for his size. And like we said, I mean, if the offense is full go at the end of the season last year, I'm not saying he's not going to get to 1,000, but he might have had like 750 yards or something receiving in his debut year when they weren't throwing it down the field that deep very often. And so he's a good answer. You mentioned Ja'Cory maybe having more catches. I think some of it, like, I'd love to see it in the bowl game. Uh, he had the touchdown, which you remember well.
Yeah.
And I like that play, whether it's a handoff or it goes in the books officially as a pass, which I think that one did because they shuffled it forward to him. Um, I like more of that with Ja'Cory. Like, I know he was a little bit injured early last year, and maybe that impacted some of it. I don't know. But remember when he was a freshman, like they ran that play. I think it was it at Purdue or whatever? It was just an end around play type, and he scored down the sideline. He had a play that got
Yep.
called back against Colorado. I think if they can get him the ball like that, and that's where I wonder about Larry Miles too on those type of plays. If you could use him, they're not gadget plays; they're pretty simple, but that sort of thing to just keep a defense honest, that you have that in your bag. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that, but everybody likes to tell Dana how to run the offense, and so that's our little I guess chime in on it.
It's with Hunter, his production in the last three last year, didn't play in the bowl game. He had 1 for 6 against Iowa, 1 for 19 against Penn State, 3 for 37 against UCLA. That was his November. So 5 catches for right around 60 yards. Like that was,
didn't play the bowl
he
game
was trending.
because of the injury.
He was trending really well up until that point in terms of, statistics and the way he was being used. So
Yeah, so
I think
take
there's a
away
lot more out there
UCLA,
for him.
25 yards in the last 3 games because the bowl he didn't play. So what did he end up with?
617.
So 617 in basically 10 games almost. I mean, or 590, and then he had 25 yards over the last 3. So yeah, no doubt. Like if he can stay healthy and your offense can hum along as you hope, and we'll see what Calandria can do with the pass game. Like, we don't want to overhype it or anything like that. But I do think they're going to threaten down the field more, or at least try to, probably just by the nature of how Calandria is going to play the position. So that has to excite the receivers, I would think.
No doubt. Anything else on football? We talk baseball.
No, you have
real
anything
quick.
else you want to chime in on before we get out of here?
So just an update of where things stand for Nebraska baseball going into Friday's action. Nebraska beat Minnesota 12-7 on Thursday. That locked in just do the quick scenario thing. So Nebraska is now locked into a top 4 spot in the Big Ten tournament next week. So they won't play until Friday. A Nebraska win today or Nebraska win today or a USC loss to Oregon, and that was a tightly contested game last night, 2-1. USC won that one. So Nebraska win or a USC loss locks Nebraska into the number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. So Huskers currently sitting number 12 in the RPI. They moved up 3 spots yesterday. So all good things there as you continue to monitor for the hosting conversation. But that's the scenario left for Nebraska. Basically, you win one of the last 2, you lock in the 2nd seed. Or if USC loses today, today or tomorrow, that'll lock Nebraska in.
Those who followed the game yesterday between Nebraska and Minnesota saw one of the stranger reviews in sports, which is saying something. Lasted 25 minutes.
Yes. 25 minutes on a bang play at first where there was some contact. And my understanding was that it was not necessarily the play itself that took 25 minutes to be reviewed, but there was some conversation about whether or not Minnesota was going to play the game under protest based upon the decision made of that review. You cannot actually play a game under protest based on an umpire's judgment call. So they were getting a rule book. They had to get a rule book locate a rule book, which necessitated somebody driving in a golf cart to get a rule book to confirm that was the case. So after all that, Minnesota did not play the game under protest. Nebraska ends up scoring 7 runs later in the game to blow things open after trailing 4-1 and wins 12-7. So
if Nebraska would have won the review, Minnesota would have been playing under protest.
Well, I don't think they could, because it was a judgment call as to whether or not there was a malicious intent. I guess I don't know what they actually would have been playing under protest or what decision they were protesting, but maybe there was malicious intent, they thought, on what was essentially just 2 dudes running into each other at first base. So
yeah, this wasn't exactly like Alex Rodriguez against the Red Sox in the ALCS, where it's like punching the ball out.
No, he wasn't like slapping the ball out, none of that. So that was why. But it basically ended up where Carson Yassa didn't throw a pitch for about 40 minutes of actual time based on that review and the way the inning played out. So
yeah, he was a little outside the zone. He was a little outside the zone, and I wondered if it was because he basically had a rain delay he had to deal with,
Well, it was like at that point, you may as well pull the tarps. Like, just put the tarps out at that point. It's 25 minutes. Yeah. Anyway, they played at 8-5.
It's like back-to-back weeks where Nebraska. So Jordy Fromm the week before, they wanted malicious intent on her running the base pass. So they're after the Huskers and how they run the base pass in both baseball and softball.
That's one of those things. Like, you want malicious intent? I'll show you malicious intent. One of those things.
All right. Well, big series continues up in Minneapolis. Just win them all. Obviously, winning 1 out of the next 2 would be big too, but you get both of them. It's got to be hosting a regional situation, right? Even if you win 1 of the 2, you'd hope. So that's what we're looking for there. Softball starts regional play at Bullen Stadium today on Friday, 5:30 against South Dakota, who has a losing record. So I'm not expecting that to be a dogfight, but you never know. Sport's a sport, so we'll see how it goes. But we'll have all the latest on Husker 24/7.